All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice question series where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A client often screams to get out of a non-preferred activity. After starting an extinction procedure where the therapist continues the task and withholds escape, the client's screaming escalates to throwing materials. What is the most important safety-related consideration when using extinction in this scenario? Now, when we use extinction, what do we expect to happen? We expect an extinction burst because we are withholding reinforcement for previously reinforced behavior. So what we expect is for that behavior to temporarily increase in intensity or frequency. Now, since we can anticipate that, we should also plan for that. In this case, if this client is screaming to escape activities, and then once extinction starts, the client's screaming escalates to throwing materials, what do we need to consider to keep everyone safe? A, extinction should only be used when the behavior is socially maintained. Now remember, behavior is either socially maintained, where another person is delivering the consequence, or behavior is automatically maintained, where the consequence is just delivered by the person themselves. Extinction can be used in either situation. So A is out. B, staff should avoid reinforcing the behavior, but increase the demands. Well, we want to avoid reinforcing the behavior because we're using extinction, but increasing demands is not part of the extinction procedure. Extinction is just withholding reinforcement. C, an extinction burst is common and safety planning must be in place before implementation. Yes, it's that straightforward. We know or we expect an extinction burst to occur, and since we can anticipate this extinction burst, we have to plan and implement safety before. And that's going to be part of your supervisor's role to help you and train you on what to do. D, extinction should be paired with punishment to reduce severe behavior. Not necessarily. Do we use extinction in conjunction with reinforcement and punishment? Of course, but it's never a absolute, right? We don't just throw in punishment because behavior is intense. Punishment needs to be used in a systematic and intelligent way. So the safety-related consideration when using extinction in any scenario is planning for the extinction burst before implementation. While teaching a client to identify their name on a worksheet, the therapist immediately points to the correct name as soon as the instruction is given. Over time, the therapist delays and fades the prompt until the client responds independently. Why is this method considered effective for early learners? So let's think about this method. It doesn't specify what the method is called, but we can figure it out by attacking the question. We know we're teaching the client to identify their name. The therapist points to the correct name as soon as the instruction is given, and then fades the prompt until the client responds independently. In other words, the instruction is given, and what happens? The prompt comes immediately. And not only does the prompt come immediately, but the therapist points at the correct answer immediately. What is the therapist doing? Well, they're trying to prevent errors from occurring. This is errorless teaching. With errorless teaching, we are trying our best to prevent any errors from happening. So why is errorless learning considered effective for early learners? A, it ensures reinforcement is delivered after errors. Well, we don't want to ensure reinforcement is delivered after errors. That would be the opposite of errorless learning, where we're now promoting errors. Because remember, reinforcement, no matter what behavior it follows, will increase that behavior. B, it prevents errors from becoming part of the behavior chain. Yes, what tends to happen, especially when teaching a new skill, is when mistakes are made, those mistakes are often reinforced either intentionally or inadvertently, and they become part of a bigger behavior chain. Errorless learning, the entire idea is exactly what it sounds like. Prevent errors from occurring early on in the teaching process. C, it teaches problem solving through trial and error. Not necessarily. That's a big concept, right? Teaching problem solving through trial and error. That's just too big of a concept to say, yes, this is why this method is considered effective for early learners. Additionally, we're not problem solving with errorless learning because we are giving the correct answer. There's no problem solving involved. D, it introduces a delay between the response and consequence. Well, we don't want to have a delay between the response and consequence, right? That's our contiguity. We want the consequence to follow as closely to the response as possible. So errorless learning is considered effective because it prevents errors from becoming part of the behavior chain. A behavior technician provides in-home therapy services to a child with autism. The child's grandparent, who lives in the same household and is often present during therapy sessions, offers a significant discount on car repairs at their auto shop. The most ethical approach to take for the technician would be what? So we have an ethical question, and on your exam, you want to go as by the book as possible when it comes to ethics. We know in practice, ethics are much more difficult than just following a task list because ethically, things are often in a gray area. On the exam, though, you want to be as by the book as possible. So if we have a technician giving in-home therapy services to a child with autism, and the child's grandparent offers a discount on car repairs, what should the technician do if we're going to be as ethical as possible? A, accept the generous offer as a way to save money. The offer is generous, and it doesn't appear that on the surface this could lead to any issues, but as the technician, we cannot start taking gifts like this, right? The rule for gifts is $10 or less and not on a routine basis. Discount on car repairs, that could be hundreds of dollars. We're not really sure. So if we want to be ethical as possible, we can't take this discount. B, politely decline the offer. Yes, as the technician, you might be put in that situation. You just have to politely decline the offer. And then if it escalates, bring it to your supervisor. C, accept the offer in exchange for additional therapy hours. Definitely not, because the technician is not in the place or position to offer additional therapy hours, especially off of what would be considered your caseload. And then D, remove themselves from the case as a boundary has been crossed. The boundary hasn't been crossed yet. They've offered you something. You need to do the ethical thing and politely decline that offer. Again, when you get an ethical question on your exam, you want to be as by the book as possible. An individual is learning to assemble a new piece of furniture by following the manufacturer's instructions. They attempt to assemble it multiple times. The data collected focuses on the number of attempts it takes for the individual to correctly assemble the furniture from start to finish without needing to refer back to the instructions. This number of attempts represents what? So let's think about it. We're looking at the number of attempts. And what attempts? What are we trying to achieve? Well, we're trying to assemble a new piece of furniture, and they are trying it multiple times. And the data we take are focused on number of attempts it takes to assemble correctly from start to finish without the instructions. In other words, if I can assemble the furniture from start to finish without the instructions, what have I done? I've mastered the skill. So when we're looking at number of attempts it takes to, let's say, master a skill, what are we looking at? Well, A, trials to criterion. Let's say my trials to criterion are 3 correct attempts in a row, meaning to master the skill, I've got to do the behavior correctly 3 times in a row. Let's say the first one I don't get right, and then I get 2 in a row, then wrong, and then 3 in a row. My trials to criterion would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It took me 7 attempts, 7 trials to reach mastery. So however many trials it takes for this person to correctly assemble furniture without instructions is your trials to criterion. Not going to be duration, because this is a number of attempts, not an amount of time. It's not rate of assembly, because rate is frequency over time. And we're not looking at the number of pieces of furniture assembled in an hour or anything like that. In D, whole interval recordings, we're not breaking these up into samples of time or intervals. We're looking at how many attempts it takes to master the skill. And that's going to be A, trials to criterion. A residential support staff is tracking a client's engagement in leisure activities during a scheduled hour. They divide the hour into 5-minute intervals. At the end of each 5-minute interval, they record whether the client engaged in any leisure activity at any point during that specific 5-minute interval. The data collection method is what? Okay, so we're using the word interval a bunch, and we've broken this time into these samples or intervals. Immediately, we know we're looking at time sampling or interval recording. Now let's look at the three typical options here. Our interval is 5 minutes long, and we have three ways we can measure this. Let's say, in this case, if they engage at any point during the 5 minutes, let's say this long, 1 minute, that is partial interval recording. If this counts, if at any point they engage during the interval, that's partial interval recording. If we require the client to engage the entire 5 minutes, the whole 5 minutes, that's going to be whole interval recording. If we're looking at the end of the interval, at the very moment it's over, that's momentary time sampling. So which one do we have here? We have that the client engage at any point during that specific time period, which is going to lead to B, partial interval recording. This is discontinuous measurement. It's got to do with an interval or sample of time. And just think, if the behavior must happen the whole time, it's whole interval. Part of the time, it's partial. And at the moment in time, or the moment it ends, it's momentary time sampling. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Please subscribe, work hard, study hard. See you soon.